Hi, everyone, and welcome to Procure Pulse, the third party services podcast that provides you with current trends, best practices, and the latest supply chain news to help you stay informed. I am your host, Mickey Meehan. I invite you to email us with questions or topics that you wish to hear covered at info@conductiv.com or connect with us on LinkedIn by following Conductiv or on Twitter at Conductiv Inc. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's get started.
We are kicking off the 2023 Procure Pulse season with an episode exploring facilities and construction side of purchase services. Facilities and construction is one of the four key service areas that Conductiv serves, along with clinical, non-clinical, and information technology services. As you can tell, I am not your usual host, Mickey Meehan. My name is Lacy Gosnell, and I'll be hosting this month's Procure Pulse. I am a new purchase service program manager with Conductiv, but I've worked in the facilities and construction team at Premier for the past 3 years. As you can imagine, I'm super excited to be leading the conversation today. Joining me today is Hank Luton. Hank is a region director on the facilities and construction team at Premier. Thanks for joining, Hank. Can you introduce yourself and just give everybody an overview of what the facilities and construction team does at Premier?
Yeah, thanks, Lacy, and thanks for having me. And we're super excited to be talking with this audience here today on the Procure Pulse podcast. So, as Lacy said, I'm Hank Luton. I've been with Premier for almost 3 years, and I'm a member of the Premier Facilities and Construction team. And we wear a number of hats. The biggest thing that we do is try to support our members, our hospital systems and facilities, with anything that we have contracted under, any of our suppliers. So it could range from a large construction project to a small box of can liners. So we are there to connect the dots for our members, and it looks different for each member. It's a it's a tough landscape right now, with all the supply chain issues, the shortages and the price increases. And we're here to help navigate those hardships for our members, and also celebrate some of those wins when we can achieve them. And as you know, being from this team and being one of my former colleagues, it can be a challenge. But that's why we're here. And I always joke with our members, like, this is why I have a job, right? Excuse me, is because we want to be here to help support you guys, whatever that looks like.
Okay. Yeah, and we went over, you highlighted some of the challenges that the construction specifically community are facing, cost increases, supply disruptions. Can you just give us, just some highlights or just an overview of what this is actually doing, what you're seeing in the construction space with all of these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for the listeners to understand that, our team, the facilities and construction team, we're by no means architects. We're not general contractors. We are just project support folks, and we're here to support the members in various ways. So one of the things that we do is we have a project member or a member project list, and we work off of that. So all of our members have, these different planning events and projects that are going on throughout the year, and they have campaigns that could stretch on to 10 years. So we get involved in a variety of different ways. And one thing that we does surround construction. So we're there to help the members even plan their large construction projects, from design to when it's occupied. And some of the challenges we've seen over the last couple of years have been those price increases that are associated with all the supply chain issues. And the supply chain deal kind of started in COVID, with the lack of supplies, because the demand of supplies went up. Right, it's just that basic, supply and demand law. Right. So we're there to kind of navigate that. And the beauty of, like, the GPO world and the Premier landscape is that we've got these fixed prices, for the most part, that are contracted out for a term, typically 3 years. And really, that's the power of the Premier GPO organization, is we've got pricing that's already set and negotiated, so that when we have these issues on a smaller scale, we're there to help, kind of add that stability to the market. Now that's completely been upside down over the last couple of years because of COVID and other various just changes to the world. So traditionally we wouldn't allow for like these price increases along our membership, our supplier membership, but we've had to adjust, because we want to make sure that these suppliers, we have a duty to the suppliers as well as the members. So want to make sure that we keep those suppliers not necessarily happy, but definitely on contract with Premier. So we just have conversations, right? We have conversations with our members on what they're seeing on these price increases, and we go back to the suppliers and talk to them about, how can we negotiate this increase down? How can we eliminate a price increase when the market does turn around? How can you help our members, level out some of that pricing when it gets better for you? So it's all about like communication. There's no real secret to eliminating price increases. It's just so variable based on where we live, the time of the year, any kind of events that are going on, and certainly COVID was the big event that kick-started these price increases, and it's probably here to stay, right? So we have other things that are going on throughout the world that we've seen, and honestly, I think suppliers, this is their new normal, right? So they're trying to figure out how they operate in this new world of price increases, and it's there's not an easy answer, but what we try to do for our members is just support. Right? Like, what are you facing? What are your challenges, and how can we help you move forward?
Yeah. And what I've always like when I'm talking or working with members is just reminding them that, where supply chain was when working with GPOs, like, 4 or 5 years ago, that's where the facilities and construction, folks are at our member hospitals. They're just not familiar on, how to work with the GPO, what we do. So I think a big part of what you all do is education, just educating the facility site directors, educating the general contractors, the subcontractors, and even our suppliers on how to align the contract and what the positive side of actually working with us is.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of what we do is, conversations. And we're trying to get our hospital staffers to understand the value of the GPO. And we've got to be able to demonstrate that for them, right? So like we can just show up at the door and say, hey, I'm with Premier, I'm Hank Luton, like here's our contracts, you should buy from us because I'm with Premier. Well, it just doesn't work that way, right? Like we have constantly got to be showing value. And that's what we try to do. And we have a smallish team, but we're out there and we're communicating with our members to try to demonstrate that. Now we do that in a number of ways. And jump back to the construction piece. A lot of our members and our construction, management teams are the construction management firms, the general contractors. The traditional model has always been, look, you give me the specifications and the drawings, we're going to put it out to the street. It's going to be bid. We're going to then select the subcontractors that are going to perform this work, right? That's the traditional sense, and that's kind of how we live today as well. But where we can help is really get involved with that project early on with the member, and then even as we're going into the design phase, and talk to them about who are the contracted manufacturers that we can offer them that could potentially help on a price point, could potentially help with quality, and nowadays, even more important, can potentially help with lead time, right? So like the whole model's flipped. It used to be like, what's the lowest price? I want that one. Now it's like, what's the quickest item that can be delivered and installed? I want that one. So it's very volatile. But what I would say the key word is early. Like get us engaged early. And then we could have more of an impact on at least stabilizing that project and helping reduce any extra costs that are associated with a project not opening on time. But it is education, right? And we're doing that, all the time with our members, our general contractors. It's ongoing.
And even architects. I mean, you said earlier, getting in there early. As these projects are developing and you're working with an architect, I think it's really important for your team to kind of be in those conversations just to educate them what is on contract so that they can use it when building the specifications.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the architect's definitely the one that's driving what's going to be coming out of the ground. I mean, they have full control over those documents. And we want to make sure that the member understands it's their project, and we want to help them support the architect as they're drawing or as they're putting together those documents. But with the understanding that this is what the member wants, not necessarily what the architect wants or the general contractor.
Looking at standardization, how hard is it for member hospitals to standardize, especially around construction with our construction suppliers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely something that we're trying to get really good at. Like standardization, it starts at the member level, at the facility level, right? Well before a project is kicking off. The goal would be, let's get a standardization program in place where you've got a booklet that kind of tells you all of the interior finishes for any project that you could do, or any renovation that you could do, or any touch up that you can do, right? And then that project comes around, and now you already know kind of what your finishes are going to be for that specific category, which eliminates the time it takes for an architect to kind of vet out some of these the material and the equipment or the manufacturers, and it really gives you that time back to start your pricing exercises and even some of your partnership talks with those manufacturers to get that stuff ordered early, so that you can guarantee that the delivery of that item or that equipment is going to take place in a timely manner. The standardization is that program is so key, and it really helps our manufacturers understand what that system is going to need, and helps them to develop some sort of a keep stock or inventory, so that you're not, as a member, running out of that stuff. It's not an easy thing to do. Standardization is probably the key term for 2022. If any of our members are talking about construction and facilities, it does revolve around standardization. And at the end of the day, it's really simple. It's like, what does the system want every room and facility to look like? How do we put that to a document? And then how do we transfer that to the projects that are coming?
Awesome. So when we're looking at just the overall construction process, and general contractors are being set, how does the member hospital really level set and make sure that they're in all of the conversations, and making sure that what their needs are really being apparent in the construction process?
Yeah, it's a great question. Lacy, the biggest thing is just engagement. These hospitals and these systems have project managers now. Back in 30 years ago, they just hired somebody that would do the work for them. Now they have dedicated project managers that are there for construction and renovations. Some of these systems have in-house design teams, in-house architects, but it's all about engagement, right? Engagement at various levels. So like, when a construction group is involved, it's up to that member to sit in every meeting or have some sort of voice in every meeting, because at the end of the day, that construction group is going to walk away from that project, and the occupancy is going to fall to the member and who the member serves, those patients and those visitors. But it's really, really about engagement. It's really about engaging your GPO partner or any kind of partner that you have, whether it's a value analysis team on site, or it's Hank Luton with the Premier Facilities and Construction team, and to allow them into those conversations so that they may hear words that trigger them, or may be able to advocate on your behalf. But it's certainly it's engagement and communication from the member to the general contractor or the construction management team. Because at the end of the day, I can't harp on this enough, like, it's truly that the owners and the members, it's your project, so it needs to be delivered as such. And there's a lot of variables that go into a construction project. But I think the old days of, hey, here's what we want to build, and then the construction group runs with it and builds what they kind of want to, I think that's over, or it's trending towards a turn in that. We want the groups to be partners, right? We don't want one group dominating the other group. We want a true partnership out of everybody involved. And we, Premier, and Conductiv, want to help broker those conversations.
So can you just give us some information on how members can benefit with partnering? I know we've gone through, a couple, high level conversations about how they can benefit, but can you just get into the nitty gritty of what they benefit from by partnering with Premier and Conductiv?
Yeah. So, I'm like, a year ago, if you would have asked me about Conductiv, I didn't know enough about it, right? I wasn't, I wasn't the best person to talk Conductiv, but now I think I've grown a little bit in the knowledge, in my knowledge of Conductiv. The biggest thing that I would say about Conductiv is the people that I've interacted with, yourself and others, are just top-notch individuals. They're very, very hardworking, very, knowledgeable in their scope of work or whatever they're working on. So the benefit is you're adding, like when you pull Conductiv and Premier into a conversation, you're adding just high-level individuals with subject matter expertise to those conversations. So the benefit right there is you've got two parties that are now involved in your project or your facility or whatever initiative you've got going on. Conductiv can help you, on the, let's just say, facility related contracts. They really have a great tool to run RFPs and all that. Everybody knows, if you're listening to this, you're probably fully aware of that, but they have the knowledge to know how to handle those RFPs. And then when you pull us in, who, we're labeled subject matter experts, so if it's a waste contract, we can help identify the vendors for that market that would be able to participate in an RFP like that. We can identify like some of the pain points that the members had with some of those waste vendors. We can identify some of the savings metrics that could be established once a contract is awarded. So the benefit starts with just that knowledge. So from there, I just think it strengthens the partnership for the member. So you're aligned with Conductiv, you're aligned with Premier, and we're bringing you opportunities, right? Opportunities to drive savings, opportunities for you to drive aggregation, which means just pulling different categories or different contracts together into one or two instead of having them spread throughout the, instead of having 10 waste contracts, you have one or two. So those opportunities, are endless. And then again, the third thing that I would just harp on is just support. Things come up in a hospital setting that are very, very reactive. The cool thing about Conductiv is everything they do is before stuff is awarded or before stuff is actually running, that they're in there and they're doing their due diligence to make sure that once a contract goes live, you've got the Premier folks there that can help you support, but everything's proactive, right? Like there's enough stuff, like the ambulance pulls up, to the front door. We got to get this guy in trauma room too. Like that's reactive. The more stuff that Conductiv and Premier can do to be proactive, the better. And the benefits are just reaped by the member. I hope I answered that okay. I mean, there's just so much to talk about, with Conductiv and Premier that, we can get into the weeds of we can go anywhere with the conversation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that was one of the reasons why, I chose to move over to Conductiv. There's just so many different opportunities, especially in the facilities and construction space, to where we can, work with even subcontractors, to put them, on a potential contract that's going to benefit our members, hospitals, find those savings. There's a ton of opportunity that we just haven't even tapped into.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, like Conductiv, I don't see why Conductiv can't be the vehicle that's running an RFP for a construction management firm who's already rostered under Premier, and then now you're aligning Premier contracts with that project, and like the savings for the member is that potential is huge, but the volume for Premier and Conductiv is huge as well. So I think there's endless opportunities. I really truly think that we're kind of just barely scratching the surface on the Conductiv deal.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, we talked a lot about, our member hospital systems and what they benefit from, when working with the GPO, Premier and Conductiv. But what did our suppliers get by building a relationship with us?
Yeah. So, really what I tell suppliers who are not a part of our Premier program, our Premier GPO, is that, and it's true, every system or hospital in the country is a part of a GPO. They have to be, they're trying to leverage pricing at a national level or a regional level to kind of to help stabilize the market. They're trying to get pricing in advance and guaranteed and stock guaranteed so that they don't run into any kind of shortages or issues. But so that's powerful, right? Like if a supplier, wants to call in a hospital, I think one of the questions that should be first from a member is like, what GPO are you? Are you a part of Premier? Or what GPO are you affiliated with? But I think the suppliers really benefit from, the connection. So we're connecting our suppliers with our members via contacts, introductions, but also all of our projects that are live and that our members are allowing us to put out, that information to the public. So it gives them more of an opportunity to get involved at the member level or the facility level to sell their products or their service or their equipment or whatever. I mean, that's their job. Every supplier has field teams of sales reps that are out there. They make money based on what they can sell. And there's so many out there, right? So who do you have to have people that vet this stuff. And that's where we can play a large part in that. And so all of our contracts on the Premier side are vetted by our contracting team, and then they're voted on by our member committee. So like the quality of our contracts is really high. But what I would say to suppliers is, we can connect you to information faster. We can connect you to people quicker, and we can connect you to projects a little bit more streamlined than the traditional process. So for instance, like if I'm an electrical distribution company, traditionally I would just wait by the phone and an electrical contractor is going to call me to price out a job for, whoever the member is in their large project. So now with the information we're getting them, the connections we're getting them, they have access on their own to talk about the planning part of it. So maybe instead of the switchgear that's going to go into a large project, just waiting on the contractor to call them, maybe they've already partnered with the member and we've got the pricing really, really good. And oh, by the way, we're going to order it super early so that we know that it's going to be here when we need it. So that's a huge benefit for the member and the supplier. And it also gets the supplier more engaged with that member. So the next 5 projects that they have, maybe that's the same model. Now it's up to the supplier to show value. So show value by price, show value by guaranteed delivery time, show value by being responsive. So there's a number of different ways they continually have to prove themselves. But I think overall, the suppliers that we, are contracted with are super happy with the connection levels that we're giving them, but also just with their volume. If they didn't have volume going up, they probably wouldn't be a Premier supplier very long.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Some of our, we have, so the facilities and construction team have, so many different strategic partnerships with a lot of suppliers to where they're really building out the relationship with those suppliers, bringing them in, having strategic conversations, and just, strategizing on how to really approach each member and what they need to do, just looking at the overall category. So I think there's just a ton of opportunities, both on the GPO side, bringing in new suppliers, but also with the current suppliers, just, being able to leverage their contract with our member hospital systems.
Yeah, I agree. And even pulling Conductiv into it, like what you just described is like engagement. In Conductiv, so if I'm in supply chain at a hospital and you're like, oh man, we've got somebody comes in, hey, we need to bid this waste management contract out. The pricing's all wacky, the service is bad. I'm the one that's doing it, right? Like I've got to gather vendors. I've got to, kind of figure out how to write a RFP. And like, the power that Conductiv has, in my opinion, is they have the ability to do that for you. Right? Like, let me do that for you so you can go back and do your regular job, because nobody's hired just to run RFPs, in a system. So let me pull that off of you. So it's just super efficient, right? To let somebody do that for you while you're getting input from the member, and then going through that process. So like the engagement that I see with Conductiv is super valuable. Again, a year ago, I might not have said that, but having more knowledge on the process and being in certain meetings and, I'm a big fan of Conductiv, and I really just find a lot of value in what they're offering our members, and it's really driving our facilities and construction team to continue to try to find value as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a platform that we can utilize when working in that subcontractor space. I mean, there's just a huge opportunity, especially looking at the diversity goals. Working with some of our subcontractors to bring them even on contract to hit some of those goals for our member hospital systems. So there's a ton of opportunity that we just haven't tapped into, but I'm really excited. I thank you so much, Hank, for your time today, and thank everybody for listening. Did you have anything else that you kind of wanted to say today, Hank?
No, it's been great. I appreciate you allowing me, a few minutes to talk about, our team, and obviously talk a little bit about Conductiv. I would say that, we're constantly trying to figure out better ways to do things on the Premier side. And, we love the feedback we've gotten from Conductiv, and we appreciate the partnership. And, hopefully this thing continues to blossom, and looking forward to a strong 23 and onward. So thank you for having me, though.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be a great year. Thank you so much, Hank. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. I hope everybody has a great 2023.